The first sound Kessa ever heard was the scrape of metal on stone. Not a voice, not a lullaby. The low, grinding drag of a Vorrathi tool worker hauling a salvage cart through a tunnel 40 meters below the surface of drain station, and the child, 6 months old, wrapped in a packing shroud left on the intake grate, was awake, blinking at the dark, already completely unbothered by any of it. Orphan found her. He was the keeper, 63 years old, 4 broad arms, eyes the color of tarnished copper, and a reputation among the Vorrathi tunnel workers as the one who cataloged everything that came down the shafts. Broken filtration coils, cracked hull plating, misrouted cargo. He had a system for all of it. He had a shelf for all of it. He did not have a shelf for a human infant. He stood over the grate for a long moment. The child looked up at him. She did not cry. The tunnel smelled of machine oil and recycled air, and the faint mineral tang the Vorrathi called home. She breathed it in and blinked. Orphan set down his cart. He picked her up in his lower 2 arms, the wide ones, built for cradling load-bearing components, and she settled against his chest with the absolute confidence of something that had decided, without being asked, that this was where it belonged. "That is a problem," he said to no one. She grabbed one of his fingers. He carried her back to the deep workshop. The Vorrathi were not supposed to be there. That was the first thing anyone on the surface would have said, if anyone on the surface had bothered to look. The official record showed drain station's lower tunnel network as decommissioned, unstable substrate, hazardous gas pockets, not suitable for habitation. The Vorrathi had moved in 3 decades ago when the Above-Ground Transit Authority reclassified them as non-resident alien labor and stopped providing them housing allocations. They had made the tunnels work, braced the walls, filtered the air, built workshops and sleeping quarters, and a common hall, where the youngest workers taught their children to read by the light of salvaged phosphor strips. They fixed things. That was what Orphan always said when newcomers arrived, blinking in the dark and uncertain. "We fix things. Everything the surface throws away, we fix it." He fixed the child too, in his way. Found milk powder in a misrouted cargo pallet. Built a warming unit from parts of a decommissioned incubator. Kept records, careful, meticulous, and put her name on the intake list as salvage item K1, recovered from upper grate 7. Then crossed it out. Then wrote Kessa because she had grabbed his finger and that seemed like enough. She grew up in the workshops. She learned to walk on stone floors, to read from dog-eared technical manuals, to tell a bent relay coil from a cracked one by the sound it made when you tapped it. She learned the tunnels the way Vorrathi children learned them, by heart, by sound, by the particular hum each section of pipe made depending on what was flowing through it. By 8, she knew every junction in the lower network. By 12, she was running tool inventory for the whole eastern quarter. She was not Vorrathi, everyone knew this. She had 2 arms, no amber eyes, thin skin that bruised too easily in the cold. The children were kind about it. Orphan never mentioned it at all. When she asked him once, she was 9, sitting on the work table while he cataloged a delivery. Whether she would ever meet other humans, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You have met humans. The medic on level 3 is human. The delivery driver who leaves packages at the upper grate on 7th day." "That's not what I mean." "I know." He set down the part he was holding. "When you are older, you can go up. If you want to, the choice is yours." He looked at her with his copper eyes. "But I want you to know something first. What you are is not decided by the species name on your intake record. It is decided by what you know and what you love, and who showed you how to use your hands." She thought about that for a long time. She never went up. The sweepers came on a first day, 2 months after Kessa turned 17. She heard them before she saw them. That was the advantage of growing up underground. She heard the vibration change in the level 2 access corridor, the particular resonance of boots moving in formation, and she was already running before the first shout came. Workshop Orphan, she hit the workshop door at speed. Sweepers, main access, 6, maybe 8. Orphan did not panic. He was Vorrathi. They had been catastrophized at before. But his 4 arms moved very fast, pulling tools from the open workbenches and locking them in the deep cabinets. The children. Lareth has them. Common hall, lower tier. Kessa was already at the secondary panel, pulling up the tunnel schematics on the cracked monitor. They came from the east access. That means they have the west shaft covered too. Compliance inspectors. No, I saw torches. Compliance inspectors don't carry torches. She looked at him. Someone told them we're here. Orphan was still for exactly 1 second. Then, the records. The records were the problem. Orphan had kept records of everything for 30 years. Intake logs, repair manifests, residency documents, everything the Vorrathi needed to prove the tunnels were inhabited and maintained. Those records were also, if read by the wrong people, a map, a census, proof of numbers, locations, names. I'll get them, Kessa said. You will not, the sweepers are coming from the east and the records office is west of the main junction. She was already moving. I know the short-run tunnels, they don't. He caught her arm with one of his upper hands, gently, the way he always did when he was very serious. Kessa. I'll be back in 6 minutes, she said. You taught me how to read a tunnel. She went. The records office was a converted storage room 400 meters west of the workshop, and the short-run tunnels were exactly that. Short, low, lit by a single phosphor strip per section. Kessa moved through them the way she had moved through them at 8 years old, at 12, at 15 when she had run supply deliveries in the dark because the main corridors were frozen over. She did not need the light. She heard the sweepers twice, once when they moved through the main junction above her, boots heavy on the grating, voices clipped and not interested in questions, and once when a patrol swung down into the secondary passage just ahead of her junction. She pressed flat against the pipe wall and waited, breathing slow. They passed. She moved. The records office door was sealed but not locked, Vorrathi design, a wheel handle mechanism requiring 2 upper arms to operate at speed. Kessa had spent 6 months practicing it with a counterweight assist she had rigged herself. She had it open in under 4 seconds. She pulled drive units from the wall rack, loading them into the carry harness she had grabbed from the workshop, counting 30 years of intake records, repair manifests, legal correspondence, the lease agreement Orphan had filed with the station authority 9 years ago when he still believed filings accomplished anything. She had 26 of the 30 drive units when she heard footsteps in the main corridor outside. Not the short runs, the main corridor. They knew about the records office. She locked the carry harness, 26 of 30. She did the calculation the way Orphan had taught her. What you can carry, you take. What you cannot, you make useless. She pulled the remaining 4 drive units, dropped them on the work table, and drove a salvage all through each one with the small hammer from her belt. Then she went out the back passage, a crawl-through access that officially led to a decommissioned pump station, which was true, and also connected to the short-run network at Junction 7 if you knew where the panel was. She knew where the panel was. She was at Junction 7, carry harness full, knuckles bruised, breathing hard, when the sweepers found the records office behind her and started shouting. Orphan met her at the workshop door. He did not say anything about the state of her hands. He took the carry harness, checked the drive units, and stood very still with all 4 of his hands wrapped around the stack of drives like something he was not willing to put down. 26, she said. I destroyed the rest. You were gone 9 minutes. I know, I had to detour at Junction 4. She looked at him. How many sweepers total? 11, they have the main access. He was quiet for a moment. They have presented a decommission order. Station authority signed 3 weeks ago. They want everyone out by morning. Kessa sat down on the work table. Her legs were not quite steady. She had run the short runs before, many times, but never with 11 sweepers and a decommission order and 30 years of someone's life in a carry harness. "Can we fight it?" she said. "Legally, perhaps the lease agreement is on drive 7, she pointed at the stack. "I have it." Orphan looked at her. Something moved behind his copper eyes, not surprise because she had never quite managed to surprise him, but something warm and old and deeply settled. "Then we fight it legally," he said. "We have records, we have a lease, we have 30 years of compliance documentation that says these tunnels are not decommissioned, they are inhabited. They'll say the documentation is invalid. Non-resident alien labor, no legal residency status." "Your residency status is different." He said it simply, the way he said most things. "You are human, you were found on this station. You have a legal right to residency under the station charter, and your residency in these tunnels is documented from 6 months of age." He paused. "Your documentation establishes a legal habitation record that predates the decommission order by 16 years. Kessa was very still. She had never thought about it that way. She had never thought about it as something useful. Her humanness, the 2 arms, the thin skin, the intake record Orphan had written and then crossed out and then written again. She had thought of it, when she thought of it at all, as the thing that made her slightly different in the workshops. The thing that required explaining. "You planned for this," she said. "I kept records," he said. "I keep records of everything." She looked at the stack of drives. She thought of him cataloging at his workbench for 30 years. Every intake, every repair manifest, every child's name on the roster. She thought of him picking her up from the grate and carrying her home. She stood up. "I'll talk to the sweepers," she said. "I want to be the one to present it. They may not listen. They'll have to look at me," she said. "I'm human. The charter applies to me without question. They have to listen." He gave her the harness. He also gave her, from the locked cabinet behind his workbench, a folded document she had never seen, notarized, stamped, dated 14 years ago, her name on it, his name on it. A formal declaration of guardianship filed with the station legal office, never acted on because no authority had ever asked, but filed and time-stamped and real. She looked at it for a long time. "You filed this when I was 3, she said. "You were already running inventory at 2.5, he said. "I thought it was time to make it official." The sweeper commander was a tall woman, surface-born, who had clearly expected to find an empty tunnel network, and instead found 11 of her officers standing around a sealed common hall, and a 17-year-old human girl, with a carry harness full of documentation, and a look on her face like someone who had been reading station charters since she could sound out the words. "Station Authority, Charter Section 12, Paragraph 4, Kessa said. "Habitation rights attached to documented occupancy of 6 months or more. I have been documented in this location since I was 6 months of age. I am now 17 years and 2 months of age. That is 16 years, 8 months of continuous documented habitation, which substantially predates your decommission order." She set drive 7 on the portable reader and pulled up the lease agreement. "This is the Vorrathi community's lease, filed 9 years ago, naming this habitat as occupied. Your decommission order does not supersede a prior occupancy claim without a legal hearing. I am requesting that hearing." The sweeper commander looked at her, then at the reader, then at the carry harness. "Where did you get those records?" she said. "I maintain them," Kessa said. "I am the assistant keeper for this district. These are 30 years of intake and compliance records." She paused. "I also have the guardianship documentation for every minor currently resident in this habitat, countersigned by the legal guardian of record. If you remove any of them without a full legal hearing, you will be in violation of the minor protection statutes in addition to the habitation charter. I would encourage you to call your legal office before proceeding." The commander was quiet for a long moment. Kessa waited. She had learned to wait from Orphan, who could outlast almost anyone. "I'll need to make a call," the commander said finally. "Of course," Kessa said. "We'll be in the workshop." The hearing took 6 weeks. The Vorrathi stayed. The decommission order was suspended pending review, then withdrawn. The lease was formally registered. A legal residency pathway was opened for the Vorrathi community under the station charter's habitation provisions, not because the station authority wanted to open it, but because a 17-year-old girl with 2 arms and 30 years of her keeper's records in a carry harness had walked up to a sweeper commander and made it impossible not to. Orphan did not say much about it. He went back to his workbench, cataloged the return drives, and made a new entry in the intake log, not for a person this time, but for the event itself. 1 line: habitation secured, documentation complete, status, home. Kessa read it over his shoulder. She put her hand, her human hand, 2 fingers and a thumb against his broad 4-fingered ones, on top of his, and left it there. "You taught me how," she said. He turned the entry so she could see it more clearly. "I only wrote down what was already true," he said. "You have always known what this place is." She thought about that for a moment, the tunnels, the phosphor strips, the sound of tools on stone that had been the first sound she ever heard, the workshops, the children learning to read, the common hall where someone was always making something. "Yes," she said. "I do." Outside, 40 meters overhead, the surface of Drain Station hummed with traffic and trade, and the ordinary noise of people who had never thought about what lived in the deep places. Below, in the tunnels, a child was banging a relay coil against a work table to test its ring. Someone was laughing, and the pipes were doing their familiar low hum that meant the air was good, and the pressure was holding, and everything was, in its proper way, working. Orphan went back to his cataloging. Kessa went back to her tools. They were home,